Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're all well. Welcome to part 2 of our Italian wine tasting this week. First off, in case any of you are surprised, sorry about the different look today. Hair and makeup weren't available, so on holiday. So yeah, I've left to my own devices. This is what happens. So sorry about that. But if you know me, you know I do normally wear a cap. So this is actually more my normal look than usual. So with all that being said, let's go on to the wine tasting today. So we introduced 2 wines to you earlier in the week, a white and a red from Italy. First off, we're going to be looking at the white wine. So this little fella here is the first up. Hope you can tell that's a white wine. It's a good start if you can tell me that. This is the 2018 Greco Bianco Cirò by Librandi, and the Cirò DOC, a denomination origine controle, is one of the foremost leading regions in this area for making wines. And Librandi are one of the foremost families, so we'll talk about that in a second. So this wine, it's 100% Greco Bianco grape. It's 12.5% ABV. It's vegan. And as I said, it comes from Cirò Coccoli, which is in Calabria in southern Italy. So that's down on the kind of end of the boot we're talking about, on the toe end, the business end there. This wine is made by Librandi. Librandi are a family winery. They've been going for since the 50s. This is from one of their 6 estates these guys have. They have about 232 acres of vineyards spread across the Cirò DOC, as I said. They've got a Val di Neto, and they've also got Melissa DOC vineyards as well. All of these areas have different characteristics on the terroir. So what this does, it allows these guys to grow quite a lot of different grapes in different styles. They turn out about 2.5 million bottles of wine annually, these guys, so they work hard. And they have also about 80 hectares of olive groves they grow, and they turn out some beautiful olive oil. And you know, why not? You know, it's the Mediterranean. What better to go with your crisp, lovely white wine than some olive oil and some bread, and there's your tapas right there, right? So if you're gonna have anything with this, recommend a bit of olive oil, a bit of bread, get stuck in. So these guys, Librandi, who are they? So we kind of mentioned them a little bit. At the moment, it is 4th generation, family run. I think it's Raphael, Paolo, Teresa, and Francesco Librandi currently run the business. No, it was originally started off by Antonio Librandi in 1953. He was the first of the family members to get some land in the area and start cultivating vines down there. He took a very practical approach from day one. He very much respected tradition. The area, as I said to you on Wednesday, is steeped in ancient history when it comes to wine. It's one of the, if not the oldest region to making wine in Italy. It doesn't get much older than this in terms of wine production in that region, or pretty much in the world, to be honest. So he had a real focus on the tradition and a love of the kind of the history of the area. But he's also really he was really interested in modern wine techniques and kind of making the area viable as a commercial place to make wine. So what he did, he bought his vineyards, or he bought the areas, and he started to plant his vines, and he dug irrigation channels and ditches and stuff to allow him to produce consistent harvests in the hot, arid conditions that can prevail down there in the Mediterranean. Now it might sound obvious to us guys, right? But at the time, this wasn't something that was being done down there, so that the output was pretty minimal back then of wines. Even though in the past it had been prolific, it was kind of left to kind of rot and ruin a little bit. So he came along, started digging irrigation channels and allowing his harvest to be consistent, and for the family name to start making a place for itself as a wine producer down there in Cirò, and in that whole area really, actually, in the whole Calabria area. So he began by doing these kind of forward-thinking techniques, if you like, and what he did consequently was to form lasting, deep relationships with research institutes down there, wine research institutes. To this day, still a deep relationship between the Librandi family and the wine research institutions down there, scientific research. What this has done is it's meant that he and his family have been able to focus on modern techniques suited to the terroir, suited to their country, suited to the soil, suited to this climate there. And what that's done is allow them to ensure their vines are the best quality, their produce is the best quality, and they're working very closely with the land to make sure that they're not short-selling themselves in any sense, or they're not ruining the land for future generations to grow wine. So it's very forward-thinking little company, with big company as it goes. Actually, one of the cool things these guys have done, if you look into this family, I think they were responsible, or they were certainly involved very heavily in the investment and research into the very first cloned Calabrian grape, or artificially created grape, if you like, down there. So they're really like right up there in terms of pushing the boundaries of what can be done and what they can learn about wine. So the one we're tasting today, as I said earlier on at the start, there is the Greco Bianco grape. Now this isn't a cloned grape; it's the original grape. And this is one of the original grapes that Antonio Librandi planted actually back in '53. So this is really kind of the root of his culture and their family wine, which is kind of cool. Now this grape's background, according to our buddies, the ampelographers, this grape appeared probably about 2,500 years ago or so, give or take probably a few 100,000 years, who knows, these guys go back so far in that region, but it's thought the ancient Greeks brought this one along with them in some form, and the grape was harvested and planted and cultivated down there for a long time. However, around kind of World War II, after World War II, this whole region was kind of a bit decimated by an exodus of the population to the cities, and a real reduction in kind of the population of the rural areas, decimated rural life after the Second World War with this move, and what that did was led to a huge decline in viticulture and wine growing in the region. Almost to the point where some grapes almost went extinct. They were saved by just individual families, really, kind of post World War II, coming back and deciding to start trying to save the culture, save tradition, and that's exactly what Antonio Librandi did. He was one of those guys that came along and said, you know what, we can't let this place go to rack and ruin. There's so much tradition here, there's so much potential. Let's look at it from a fresh light and see what we can do. Hey presto, this is what he's done. With the Greco Bianco grape, it's pretty well renowned for late maturation, so it goes to a fairly late harvest, which is good, as we've discussed previously, because what that does, it allows maturation of the grape to its full potential, if you like. So in terms of its flavor profile, its acidity for white grapes is so important. Problem with grapes that mature late is they are at risk from powdery mildew and other attacks on the grape. The longer they're on the vine and the longer they stay on into the season, the more at risk they are of these things. So they have to be watched carefully. And basically, I think these grapes are normally harvested. What are we talking? Late September, I think they normally harvest Librandi for the Bianco. So they wait for a thing called veraison, and in winemaking, veraison just means when the grapes change color on the vine. So when the bunches of grapes change color en masse, that means, okay, they're reaching maturation. It's time to start thinking about picking them. There'll be a small window where it's optimum picking time before they either go beyond their optimum point or or they get eaten by birds or the pests, right? Or get some kind of nasty powdery mildew or something like that. After veraison, they soft press these grapes. So as we've talked about before, soft pressing the white grapes just means they avoid getting any kind of tannins or colours out of these grape skins. They don't want them, they just want the juice out of the white grapes, right? In most cases, they don't really want any colour extract from the grape. They don't want the tannins coming out of the skin. They want to really avoid what's in the skin as much as possible and just get the juice from inside the fruit. So they soft press. They then put these put the juice into thermocontrolled steel vats, and they ferment the wine at a fairly low temperature. After this point, they then allow the wine to mature in steel vats for a few months before bottling and leaving the wines to bottle to mature as well for a few months before they're released to market. So the wine's had a bit of time to kind of to grow up, if you like, in the bottle before they release it. And as I think we're going to find out, it's probably a wine best drunk fairly young. Okay, so we'll see how that goes though in a minute. In terms of the terroir of the grapes, vineyards down there, we talked a little bit about this the other day. It's going to be a hot Mediterranean climate. Mediterranean influences in this particular area down at the end of Italy there. You've got the Tyrrhenian and the Ionian Sea we talked about the other day on either side of this region. So they are going to be bringing some weather systems in with them. They are going to be bringing in maybe more moisture. They're going to be bringing in certainly a lot of wind into the region. So with that in mind, the wind is going to probably help with some overnight and daytime temperature fluctuations, which will help the grapes stay longer on the vine, not mature too quickly in that blistering heat, and allow them to develop properly. And in terms of the soil type for the terroir here, well, I think it's predominantly limestone and clay loam, and loam is so it's a bit of silt in there, there's a bit of sand in there as well. So these are typically quite fertile, which is why this region's been so good, I think, for growing wine for so many thousands of years. Easy to work with, this kind of soil, good drainage. And the drainage obviously means that the vines don't get drowned with too much moisture, and that they work fairly hard to produce their fruit, which, as we know, means the quality of the fruit is going to be fairly decent. So that's our terroir. That's the kind of the weather and the soil we're talking about. Now, I think it's about time we tasted it. It's Saturday after all. I'm really disappointed in the cleanliness of my glasses today. I can see some kind of lipstick mark on there. That is not me. It's not my colour. I'm going to go for this anyway. I'm going to have to avoid that. It's shocking. Okay, we're going to pour this though anyway. All right. So let's take a look at this, guys. Here's your colour. So I'm going to do the old window test on this one. So it's quite a pale lemon colour. It looks young. It's not got a kind of any deep kind of golden tinges to it or anything like that. It's a kind of a very light colour with a tiny bit of green perhaps going on. So it looks fresh and it looks like a young wine to me in the glass. Let's have a little smell of this. That is a really lovely nose on it. It's not an enormous pungent nose, It's not one of those ones where you smell it as soon as you open the bottle. It's quite delicate, quite aromatic actually. It's kind of quite a bit peachy. There's a little bit of citrus in there. It reminds me of something. It reminds me of another vine, another grape, Viognier. It reminds me of Viognier, which if you've been in the bar and you've had any of our blends of Viognier, and you'll it's quite an aromatic smell. Makes your mouth water a bit as well. It's a lovely smell. Right, okay, we're going to go in for a taste. That is wonderful. That is such Mediterranean tasting wine. You know, it's you can really, it really transports me to kind of southern Mediterranean. You know, sitting in a dock or a harbour somewhere, maybe a nice little harbour somewhere after on your summer holidays, and you go out for tapas or something, and you get some local wine, and it's just got that really lovely full, it's quite a full taste in the mouth. Kind of peachy in the mouth, definitely a little bit of kind of lemon kind of zest taste going on in there as well, but it's not overly kind of acidic. It's not attacking me, you know, in the mouth, and not like making me pucker up here. It's, yeah, that's lovely. That's very drinkable indeed. Dangerously drinkable, actually, guys. I would say there's a little bit of elderflower going on in that. So it's got a green taste, kind of leafy green taste going on. Maybe a little bit of asparagus as it's developing in the mouth, got a green taste to it. Yeah, that's really, really drinkable. You can almost taste, I'm just letting this sink in, but you can almost taste a little bit of not minerality, but it's more salinity, actually, a little bit of a salty kind of background. And whether or not that's anything to do with the terroir and the sea breezes ripping across these vineyards, who knows, maybe. But I'm definitely getting a little bit of salinity at the end there, which is lovely. It's a nice, lovely, nice, fruity, just gentle, lingering finish on this one. In terms of aging this one, guys, if you wanted to keep it, I wouldn't suggest we age this one, particularly maybe, this is 2018 that we have. Now, as far as I know, these guys recommend drinking their wines pretty quick. So I think within 3 years, I mean, the acidity is pretty good in it, but within 3 years, you're probably wanting this one to have been gone. All right, you're not going to have it in your cellar or in your kitchen larder for much longer than that. So with this being 2018, you know, I'd be looking at next year, the latest this was gone, this one. Right now, it's lovely. That's very, very good drinking right now, guys. So yes, I recommend getting stuck into that one. And if you're looking for food with this one, having just tasted that, what would I go for? Fish. I mean, obviously it's grown with olives. They grow a lot of olives with it as well. So yeah, it'd be great as an aperitif with olives. Or olive oil, as I said, and some crusty bread, and dip it in, and that'd be amazing with that, actually. Or if you're having it with a main course, personally, I'd probably have that with some grilled fish, or barbecue fish. Grilled fish would be lovely though. Like, if you can get it, I would say that'd be lovely with a swordfish, if you can get hold of it. So yeah, that'd be my recommendation on that one, guys. Yeah, or maybe deep fried prawns or something like that. Anyway, I'm hungry, I'm rambling about food. Let's move on to the next wine. So the next wine, guys, is our red wine. And this is our Bacca Nera Negra Mora Primitivo. Here she is. Now this one is 13.5% in the bottle. Again, it is vegan. So both the wines today have been vegan, which is great. And this one is from Salenta IGT, Puglia, as we said the other day, southern Italy again. So if we were looking at the map of Italy and we've just been looking at the toe of Italy, we're now looking at the heel. So still right down south there. Still pretty close to Sicily and places like that, where the ancient Greek wine traditions kind of first started coming from and spreading through the rest of Italy. Now, as I said, this is Salenta IGT. And IGT, if you don't know what that means, is it's just another denomination. It's Indicazione Geografica Tipica, I think, in Italy, and that is the level down below DOC, which is the kind of the main denomination in Italy. You have DOC and DOCG as the top level, and there's not a million, especially down in southern Italy, there's not that many DOCGs. DOCG is the top level of wine in Italy, and it's, yeah, there's not a ton of them, especially down south. And that's really just because of the controls put in place or asked for by the governing body of wine in Italy. Maybe don't appeal to many wineries, or maybe the style of wine that is made in a particular region doesn't suit being so strictly controlled as DOCG would ask for. And likewise with IGT doesn't mean it's a lower quality wine than your DOC or your DOCG. All it means is the kind of the restrictive rules around how you make your wine and what's in it exactly in terms of percentages of this grape, percentages of that grape, don't apply so much to IGT. So IGT focuses more on displaying the regional characteristics of wines as opposed to specific, 10% of this grape and 13% of this grape and no more than 5% of that grape. They're not so worried about that kind of thing. So yeah, IGT is not an indication of poorer quality wine. It's really just more an indication of how much largesse the wine has to be made in the style that the maker wants to make it, if you like. Now the vineyards, as I said, we're talking Salento, so in the heel of the boot of Italy. This is a big old limestone peninsula separating the Ionian and the Adriatic this time. In theory, because of as I said, it's an IGT vineyard and the area where it's located, they could do anything they want. They could produce this wine any style they want, but typically in Salento, the way they make their wines, especially the red wines, is big, bold, rustic style reds, okay? And that's historically how they've made them. So the vineyards are continuing those traditions. It's a traditional kind of, if you like, Salentan red wine. Now this bottle, you see it's got the name Baccanera on it. And that Baccanera is the label of the brand, if you like. Now, Baccanera is just a kind of a label name. It's not the actual company that make it. The company that make it is called Casa Vinicola Botta, I think. Now this company was founded in 1928 up in Veneto, really as a wine merchant. They were more kind of concerned with selling wine by the barrel and looking at exporting wine by the barrel. Not necessarily their own wine. They were more of just a wine merchant than a winemaker. After World War II, they moved into focusing on bottles of wine as opposed to barrels, and really pushed their export market, and that was where they were looking to kind of grow their business. So what do they do after World War II? They moved into this, and they are now managed by a third generation of the family. And I think 90% of their business is export now. 10% of the wine sold regionally or domestically, the rest of it goes abroad. They do have a couple of their own wine estates. I think they're both in the Veneto region. One is Treviso and one is somewhere cool like, what is it, Motta di Levenza, and they're both near Veneto. And these are both typical regions. Typical regional wines that they produce in these vineyards. What they also do, which is where this one comes in, is partner with a lot of other regional winemakers, and then they put their own label on these bottles and sell them as their wines. So in this case, what that means for us is the Baccanera is fairly hard to kind of go into specific details about who grew it exactly, where exactly in Salento it was grown, and the practices that were employed whilst growing it. What I can tell you is it's practicing organic vineyards. So all that I can get from the Botta family is that they use strict standards down there. They monitor everything very strictly when their wines are being made down there with the guys they partner with for the viticulture side of it. They have strict quality control standards in place as well, which have to be adhered to, otherwise the guys making this wine will be out of business pretty quick. And as I said, it's practicing organic, we know that. In terms of the grape itself, we can tell you more about that. I can't tell exactly who made it, but I can tell you the grape itself and the region itself. I can tell you a little bit about that. So the Negra Amora grape and the Primitivo grape are what forms this wine. The Negra Amora is a classic grape that was native to the region in terms of being bought there thousands of years ago. Now the Negra Amora grape was bought there, what do they think on this one, by the Illyrians, who were there way before the ancient Greeks. I think we're talking Well, the ancient Greeks came, what, 7th century BC, and the Illyrians were there before that. And the Negro Mora grape, they think, or its ancestor, was introduced by them way before then. There's a history going back to up to 8,000 years, so it's really hard to say, but this is a really old grape, a really native old grape of the region for that long. It flourished, the winemaking flourished in the region in Salento for thousands of years until the collapse of the Roman Empire, which was, when was that? Can anyone tell me when that was? 1453, I think, was the official collapse of the Roman Empire. Someone can correct me on that. I'm sure we've got some historians watching this. After that, wine in the region, the wine production in the region collapsed. And luckily, the only people that kept it going were our good old friends, the monks. I think it was the Greek Orthodox monasteries that kept wine growing going, preserved some traditions. And as time went on, people began to come back and start to want to grow wine there, and the monks taught them, and hence, hey presto, we continue the tradition of the Negro Mora grape, thankfully. In terms of the actual practices, though, that we now see with these grapes, I can't tell you too much, unfortunately, other than because this wine's been produced in the typical style rustic, I imagine it's probably a fairly simple vinification on this one. They won't be doing anything crazy on it. There'll be no unusual, crazy, wacky techniques or any natural wine techniques we might want to talk about. It's probably going to be fairly standard. So I think the only other thing we can talk about here with this one, I can tell you that the terroir down there, roughly, I know where this one's grown. It's in the eastern part of Salento, which borders onto the coastline. What does that mean for us? It means that we're going to have some winds, which will help with the temperatures. All right. Now, this part of the country, Puglia, I think in English-speaking language it's pronounced Apulia, and Apulia is actually taken from the ancient Roman Apuvlia. I think that means Appluvia, which means no rain or absence of rain. So, by its name, we've got a guess of the terroir already. It's coastal, it's hot, it's pretty dry, there's no rain, very little rain. We do get some diurnal temperature variations thanks to the sea being close to the vineyards here in the eastern regions, which allows the grapes to form a bit of complexity, basically. If the temperature is kept high and hot all the time for red grapes like this, without any diurnal variations in the temperature, what you'd find is you'd end up with grapes that are very sugary, probably, and quite a lot of high residual sugars and high alcohol. This is only 13.5%, so it's not a huge wine. So it's going to have, I suspect, some complexity to it. In terms of the soil types down there, what we've got very old soils laid down. What are we talking? We're talking rich iron oxides in the soils and some kind of calcium underlayers, calcium formed underlayers. So the soil's very, very fertile with the oxidized top soils. Hence it's been farmed for vines for so very long. Again, the drainage is good. So we've got perfect conditions for vines here. That really is all I can tell you about the kind of the vinification and stuff of this one. As I say, it's really hard to find much else out about this one in particular. Now, let's have a look at it. That's a beautiful colour straight off the bat. I'm loving that. You can see that there you go. It's not a bad picture of it there. It's not terribly deep in colour, but it's a lovely, attractive kind of mid garnet. Wow, the nose hit me straight away. It's a lovely kind of attractive mid garnet, I'd say, that one. Yeah, the nose got me straight away. I'm going to have to get into this one. It's quite intense. Yeah, I'm getting some black cherries on that. A little bit of a kind of a peppery background. Definitely a little bit of black pepper in that. Maybe a bit of kind of plums or something like that as well on that one. Yeah, it's kind of got a nice rustic smell to it, I'll be honest. I'm going to have a little taste. Che bella, that is so good. Okay, we've got some lovely cherries in that straight away. Black cherries. Yeah, really kind of ripe plums. Oh, the aftertaste, the kind of the finish is beautiful. Not really any spice actually. It's a lot smoother than I thought it was going to be. Very drinkable. Finish is different to what I was expecting as well. It's actually sweet, which is interesting because it doesn't taste that sweet. I'm just going to check again. Not particularly sweet, but the finish is lovely and sweet and lingering. So yeah, lots of cherries, kind of stewed plums in this one for me. It's not heavy though. It's got a lot of full-bodied flavour to it, but it's not heavy, and the tannins are so well integrated in this one. It's very smooth actually. Now this one, aging-wise, yeah, I think you could probably age this one a few years if you want. It hasn't got an awful amount of tannins in it, so I don't know if it would particularly benefit from it. Is the thing here, right? You age your wine to soften the tannins essentially a lot of the time, and this one doesn't need it. So again, I'd say you can drink this one now, guys. And food on this one, well, this would go well with a lot of stuff actually, with maybe egg-based dishes, tomato-based Italian dishes, so a nice robust lasagna, maybe venison lasagna would be lovely with this or something like that. For me, piri-piri prawns or something like that, some spicy king prawns would work also with this, or piri-piri chicken if you like chicken. That's a lovely wine. It's got a lot of flavour. It's still lingering in my mouth here. So I hope you enjoy both of these wines, guys. And do let me know what you think of them, which one you prefer, or if you like them both, brilliant. If you do, as with any of the wines you do on the tastings, if you do like them and you want to get hold of some, just let me know and we can do crates of these wines. No problem at all. Okay. And if you do want to join me next week, as always, guys, let me know as soon as you can, so I can make sure there's wine set aside for you. And I really hope you enjoy these, and yeah, look forward to your feedback. Have a great weekend.